Hi, my name is Sangita Kumar, and I'm the CEO and founder of Be the Change Consulting. Join me in Liberated AF, the workplace revolution. This is a podcast where we get to explore what does it take to become the organization that we want to work for. So what is that? The organization I want to work for, it supports my humanity and makes me feel like I belong. It's a place that isn't racist, it isn't extractive. It works for the boomers and the Gen Alphas. There's space for everyone to bring their genius to work. Don't we want to become that? And don't we want to create that? So I have been studying organizational dynamics for over 20 years, and I love working with teams stuck in an entrenched challenge to bring clarity to diverse perspectives and look for ways that human-centered systems. We're going to tell stories, we're going to answer questions, we're going to offer strategies on this podcast. Together, we are going to become something new. Let's go.
Good morning, Sangita.
Hey, Fong.
What's up, friend? What's good?
Oh, well, so much. I've had such a full week already.
A full weeks of successes or a full weeks of learning opportunities? Let's call it that for now.
Yeah, a full week of reflection. And I was reflecting on one that was not a success. I caught myself in a spiral this week where, I found myself just replicating a bunch of dominant culture characteristics, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it. And it took me by surprise, and it took me a minute to figure out even that it was happening. And now I've just been sitting up with it.
So, when did you realize it? In the act of flexing those familiar characteristics after the fact, or maybe somebody called you in to say, "Yo, this is what's up." So, when did you realize it, and what did you do?
Yeah, that's a good question of when did I realize it. So the synopsis is I was I was facilitating a session for a set of clients, and it was a 4-person team that came together to produce an event. And this 4-person team was all different identities. Is a multicultural group. And they're running an event for like a community of like 100 people. And it's I kind of want to keep it vague so we kind of protect the confidentiality of. So I'll just say it's a group of clients that represent a bunch of identities that are not, dominant culture identities, but it's not an identity that I hold. So I was brought in as an ally, specifically because they're like, we don't actually want someone from our own community. We think that'll actually make it harder for us. We want someone who can really hold this space as with like a little more neutrality. Which, like, I have a lot of anxiety about that particular role. We get invited to hold that kind of space, and I think it's important to do that kind of labor. That is the labor of an ally. And in my head, I'm constantly like, I think these people would rather have a facilitator who, matches their identities. But that's my own probably bias. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think oftentimes when you get invited into a community to do the work of their movement moving forward, their evolution of themselves, is you want to check yourself. That's the work that we do. We check our identities, where we hold power, where we hold privilege. And so I can fully understand how you would come in with a feeling where you want to honor the space, be supportive. I don't know, even feel you probably sweaty palms, sweaty, bits a little bit because you just want to honor the folks that are there. Okay. So now tell me more. When did it happen?
So now we're in this team. So we designed this 4-person team plus me. So let's call it like the production team, right? The design team. And so we come together we've met in person, and we came together on Zoom to kind of plan out this event. And we talked through the content, and we kind of made an agenda together. We identified a speaking order. We were very intentional. Like, we wanted to really feature the folks who had identities that match this group to speak the most. So, one of our people is Indigenous, and she's like, I'll do a land acknowledgement. And someone else is actually the person who's the board president is a Black woman. And we were like, you need to start, kind of the session. So both it was their expertise and also their identities, right? We figured out how to kind of create a good order, and sort of like line people up that reflected kind of our values. And then I after some mic passing, then I would take it and kind of do the agenda, and then I would sort of be the MC and like kind of the holder of the space, right, for the rest of the session. And I understood that my role was, this group of people are more community members. They're not like, it's not like this is like a full-time job. So they're and so, often in that space, my job is to like really help them kind of accelerate their decision making. I'm someone who runs events all the time with hundreds of people. Like, it's not as nervous. I'm not as nervous. It's not as nerve-wracking. I kind of have a sense of like, this is how you do it. These are folks who are like, they care about their community. It's like they're throwing a party. So it matters more to them, and they're not as experienced, right? And so I'm like, okay, my job is really to facilitate you all so that you can really package your values and get your message across in this meeting that you're facilitating.
Mm.
And so that does mean that like I show up with a little bit of like, I want to move you forward energy, right? I want to bring some momentum and maybe help them go a little faster, because they're not used to working together, and so that means they just kind of take longer. So just holding that, right? Like I was trying to go, I had in my mind that I need to help these guys get to where they want to go. And so then we get in the room, and throughout this work, my point of contact, while the whole leadership team is diverse, my point of contact was the white woman. And so in the session, we started to run over on time. So I went to my contact person, who's the white person, and I was like, we're running late on time. What should we do? We looked at the agenda. We made a plan for where to cut. We were like, let's reduce the speaking time of some of our leadership team. Everyone had already gotten to speak once. They were going to speak a second time. I went to two of those people and I was like, hey, we're running we're running behind on time. Can we shrink this piece? Do you have something you really need to say, or can we shrink or adjust this? So I said something like that. And yeah, so it turns out, right, speeding to the end of this, that interaction, it did not land well on the person. It happened to be the Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it didn't happen to be, right? So this is where maybe this is an act of like bias or unconscious bias. She and I talked it through, and she was like, no, actually I do want to speak. And I was like, okay, great, go for it, do your thing, we'll cut sometime somewhere else. So we resolved it like that in that moment. And then later on, we're debriefing it, and in the debrief, she said, that interaction did not feel good to her. She was like, I felt like as the only Black leader in the group, I needed to speak. It was important that I spoke. And like, I didn't like how Sangita came up to me and proposed to me that I didn't speak. And I was like, but you did speak. Like, I asked you what you wanted.
Oh, wait a minute. So your reaction was you did speak, but were you feeling anything when she gave you this live feedback?
Yeah, I was, yes, I definitely was like, my defensiveness went up.
Okay.
And like, there's like a part of me that's like, what do you think could have happened? Like, I didn't have any other choices. Like, this was my job. We were trying, this wasn't about you, centering you. This is about getting to the objectives for these 100 people that were in the room. So like, my inner monologue is defensive. It is like minimizing what this person is saying. It is kind of judging, like, oh, you want me to take care of you, but you're not seeing who I was trying to take care of, and that, we had different needs in that moment. So yeah, that's what was happening for me.
And then I imagine you sat with what she shared.
Yeah. We, in that moment, I was like, I hear you, even though I didn't really understand, right? So my training kicked in. I knew not to say that. I knew it going ahead. I said, I'm so sorry it didn't land well. I'm really going to think about what you said. And we'll, oh, and she said this other thing. She was like, Sangita, we're all your client. Why were you only checking in with that one person? And that also sparked in my head, like, I've been checking in with that one person this whole time. That's the person who scheduled the meetings. That's the person who set up my contract. That's the person who's got there ahead of time. That's the person who was texting me on the way there to say, did you bring the speakers? And, I did and in my mind, the person who does all of that elbow grease is the person who ends up getting to make the call in that space. So, okay. So all that happened. So you're right. So afterwards I sat with it and it didn't feel good, like I understood that person had a perspective. I had another perspective. And then this thing happens. I don't know if this happens to you, but like I ended the call and in my head, I could feel myself like chasing inside of like a revolving door. Like I was repeating the conversation. I was repeating my arguments. I was sharpening my arguments. I was like, how dare, this person like I was just continuing the argument, but from a very defended place.
Yeah.
And so I called a friend, and I was like, what am I missing? So, okay. So then I think another part of my training is like when I'm in that ping-pongy place and my head is like, it's like, like I can't quite let something go.
Because
Yeah.
because even there is a reason why you can't let it go.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you are seeking some sort of justification and affirmation. So even you know. So that's okay. I just want to say for folks who are also going, yes, 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 Sangita, this happens to us too, then know that she knew in her body, and you all know too, is that something wasn't sitting right, right? Okay, so you phoned a friend.
And I think even the shape of what's happening in my thoughts, if I can and I think this is where like meditation or mindfulness is important. It's like to be able to see, and I don't know that I could have seen my thoughts like this 5 years ago. And so I think this is another example of like being in the work doesn't mean that we're going to get it right, but we might have some breadcrumbs for ourselves where we're like, oh, like I think I'm in either or thinking. And that's what it feels like, that ping-ponging of like either I'm right or this other person is right. Who I need an arbiter to decide that I'm right. Right. And so what I'm doing in my head is I'm trying to work through all the arguments that allows me to be right.
Right.
Which, okay, so then that leads me to my next piece of training, which is like, oh, am I trying to be right or am I trying to be in right relationship? And if I can get that question, then I can be like, what am I missing? And then I can say, from what am I missing? Now I can phone a friend, right? So I called my friend, and I think it's important to be in that place where I'm like, what am I missing when I phone a friend? Because if I phoned a friend when I was like looking for an arbiter, a judge and a verdict, I would have called a different friend, and I would have told the story in a way that I would have gotten my redemption.
Exactly.
So I called a friend and I kind of walked her through it, and she was like, who are these identities? Where is trauma? Where is like, generational identity-based trauma for this community showing up here? And then where is like, and then there's like intersectional identities. It's not just race, it's race on top of a different, marginalized identity. And so they're playing out together. And so she's like, imagine this Black woman inside of this community. She's holding this like multiple oppressions. And as soon as she said that, I was like, okay, got it. This woman, it's like that wasn't the first time that she felt silenced or dismissed or minimized that day, that week, that month. And now I was the person when I stepped to her and said, do you mind not talking? In my mind, I'm taking care of this giant agenda. And in her mind, she's going, here it goes again. And so then
what value did you center then? When you were in your head thinking, I'm trying to move you all forward, this is my job to support y'all to what value were you centering?
Yeah, probably I'm the only one. Probably perfectionism, right? I want this event to go well. Probably also sense of urgency, right? Like there isn't enough time for us to figure this out together. Someone has to make a call and we have to move. And those are not bad values. I actually have I know that I have gotten to a lot of success because I hold those values.
Yeah.
The problem here was it wasn't a collectively held decision that that's the thing that we center. And um and so then there's that too, right? It's like, what happens when we miss a moment in how we design our alliance as a leadership team that's designing an event? And it's like a microcosm of like a challenge that happens in collaboration. And when we don't have the right structure in how we create our collaboration, right? Which would have meant we would have said, what are the values that we're going to center? What happens when multiple things are simultaneously important? And we can always predict this challenge, right? If it's about getting through the content on the agenda or finishing on time versus making space for something emergent that comes up in the room, how will we make that call? Right? Like, and they could have said, had we asked that question, they could have said, well, always time is the most important thing. Or getting to sharing all the information is the most important thing. Or pausing and huddling up and deciding as a group in that moment, even if it takes 10 or 15 minutes, that's what we want to do. Like,
Right, because that
I will never make that call because that wouldn't be what I'm trained to do, but I could. And I think if I did that, I might see that we get to a better outcome, you know? Maybe.
maybe we don't know, and I think if you would have done that too, it would have made that leader and understood, right? Because she had experienced all these past experience where she felt silenced, that she would see, oh yeah, we've agreed to that, and this is one of our deciding matrix, right, moving forward. But that was never agreed upon. So, what do you think was her unmet need in that moment? What value was she holding that, that she experienced? And I love that you said this is like, we have an opportunity to reflect on if we want to be right or if we want to be in right relationship.
Yeah.
And the second you said that, you were like, oh, so then that's when you realize I caught the case of my dominant culture. What do you think? What was her unmet need?
I think her need was to be seen, to be respected, to be treated as a leader, to have influence, and then to separate. Like, no, I didn't do all the coordination of the logistics, but I'm a thought leader for how we center our values in this space. And they're two different qualities of functional expertise. And it was like, because she didn't bring one, I dismissed her capacity for the other. And that is, I think, that's like the true violation that I did. And I'll just to close this, like the next day I called her because I was like, okay, what's most important is right relationship. And I think she did a double labor. First there was like the harm she experienced in that moment. And then she's trying to talk about it in the debrief and she didn't get heard, because I couldn't catch it fast enough. And so I just want to say that also will happen to folks. We're so trained in dominant culture. And the people who are having these experiences of microaggressions are in this place where they're already feeling diminished. That is not the like time where they're going to be most able to figure out like, how do I send this message in a way that lands for this person who isn't seeing it my way anyway? And so I think there is also, this is the labor of the ally, is to do our own reflection, to find the narrative, and then to offer a proposal back. So when I called her, I was like, I just wanted to say that I don't know that I was like, I think my brain was moving a little sluggishly when we were talking yesterday, and I really took some time to think about it. And this is what I heard. I agree with you. Like, I see how that moment was a moment of anti-Blackness. I see how I diminished you. I didn't bring you in as a thought leader and an expert. I defaulted to what we had been doing, and I didn't think that there might have been an opportunity for us to do something differently. And I understand that if I had brought you in as a thought partner in that moment, we would have come up with a different solution, and it might have worked just as well. It probably would have. Actually, it would have worked because it would have been the thing that we all decided on together. And then we would have owned the process and we would have owned the consequences together. And I get that what I ended up doing was making a solitary decision instead of bringing you into the process. And it just disarmored her, I thought. She was so generous. She was like, that's what I needed to hear. I feel heard. I feel seen. And then it was over. It ended. And now we're continuing to work together. And I don't think our relationship is forever damaged. I actually think it is strengthened. And I think that is also the work of allyship, to be like, we will make mistakes. I have no way of knowing the experiences and the traumas and like how that impacts and influences somebody on the inside, this is the way that we go through it, right? It's not to avoid conflict, but to like embrace it, I think.
Wow, Sangita, that's really helpful for me. I think it's so I look to you as someone who is constantly in the field working on this muscle, and you're right, we're an evolution of ourselves, and we haven't met and understand everyone. And so to know that this was the moment where we call it the case of dominant culture, but it's that moment where we humble ourselves. And you did another skill. I just want to lift this up too as we close up the session, is that you acknowledge the impact. So that was another technique that you did. Although you shared with us what you were internalizing, you paused and you said, "I'm sorry." And so you didn't make that justification out loud, which, you're someone who's seasoned, you're in the work, so I want to say that there are probably listeners, leaders who are, on different parts of their journey. And so I hope you all found that this episode was helpful, and that there are techniques and tips that you can take and to use in your next session with your teams. And if you like what's going on, subscribe and catch us on the next session. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
We hope this conversation provided helpful insight and inspired you to create a more inclusive and liberated workplace. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. Your support makes a huge difference in helping us reach more listeners like you. We love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. Connect with us on social media and drop a comment. You can find all the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.